A report came out stating, unable to afford homes, young people are turning to risky investments and reckless spending in desperation and despair. There was also this other report that claimed housing has become increasingly out of reach for younger generations, and many households are now abandoning the goal of home ownership altogether. And so let's talk about that, right? Because this comes from a lot of economic papers, and almost all of them are saying the exact same thing. And that is, young people feel home ownership is basically impossible. And some of them mentally just quit the game altogether. And that's why they start to behave differently with money and with work. Now, not everyone reacts the same way, but the research does claim that there is a recognizable group of discouraged renters who change their choices because the normal wealth path of buying a home, building equity, leveling up over time, it feels completely blocked. And let's go deeper into this report. The title is called Giving Up: The Impact of Decreasing Housing Affordability on Consumption, Work Effort, and Investment. This was a study where it does use a life cycle model, which is basically a big simulation of how people earn, spend, save, invest, and age over their lifetime. And then they plug in the real world US data, like the wealth, the spending, the attitudes, and then they ask, when housing gets way more expensive, how do young people adjust their behavior? This is how they came to the conclusion of there's a lot of youngsters right now that are just not willing to buy a big home because they know that they can't. The study does suggest that there is a point in these people's lives where they decide and say, even if I work hard and save, I'm still not gonna get a house. And once someone crosses that line mentally and financially, the model predicts they may reallocate their efforts and their money towards something that feels more rewarding now and has some sort of lottery ticket upside, meaning that you have that short-term dopamine effect of trying to achieve financial freedom and making small gains along the way. The study does continue to show that there is patterns here. Like, for example, there is more non-essential spending on credit cards. They show about 10% higher credit card spending on non-essentials compared with similar households. Point number 2, there's lower emphasis on hard work because the young people are looking at this and saying, there's no reason for me to work even harder because the whole thing about home buying is unreachable. So that is why they do the bare minimum. Point number 3, as we discussed, there's more high risk investing, including crypto, for sure. The study does explain that renters are more likely to participate in volatile high risk assets like crypto, especially among people with a net worth of around $50,000 to $300,000. So clearly you can see that they don't want to participate in the slow, boring wealth building route where you build a home equity. They want to chase the riskier route and jump levels as quickly as possible. And the authors of these studies, they think that this is a rational response. They frame it as a rational response to blocked opportunity, because if the traditional path doesn't work, some people shift to short-term enjoyment and high upside bets. So why does housing feel unattainable today in the first place? And that is because of 3 different reasons. There's not enough homes, there's higher prices, and higher mortgage rates. There is a US shortage of around 4.7 million housing units, and the type of income that you need to buy a medium home is around $114,000 annually in income, because the median price is also around $426,800. And you also have to commit to 20% of the down payment. You also have to recognize that the mortgage rates are around 6.5 to 6.6%. It's been noted that the required income is about 70% higher than 2019, which was at that time around $67,000 annually. So even if you're doing normal things right, the finish line to get to that point of attaining a house, that finish line is moving farther and farther away for the normal American, and the paychecks are not keeping up. And in terms of how we got to this point of all of these youngsters, the young people not being able to afford housing and get a mortgage, it wasn't through one single event. Like, there is a chain reaction here that has been happening over the past 20 to 25 years. Let's talk about the post-2008 underbuilding era. After the 2008 crisis, construction slowed for a lot of years, and that created a backlog, and the supply did not keep up with the population and the household formation. Let's talk about what happened between 2020 through 2022. There was a demand surge. The pandemic era changes boosted housing demands in many places, while supply chains disrupted building and the inflation rose, which leads towards what's been going on between 2022 through 2025, which is the interest rate era. There has been a huge jump here. We have seen raised monthly payments for new buyers. This also kept existing owners locked into old low-rate mortgages. We also saw reduced inventory because people did not want to sell and lose their low rate. This is going to be a table that shows a lot of data and will give you a better understanding on where the median home price has been over the past 6 to 7 years, what has been the median household income, and the type of income you actually needed to afford the median home. As you can see here, as of 2025, for example, the median home for today is around $427,000. The median household income as of right now is $83,150, but you do need to be in a situation where annually under the household, you need to have around $114,000 come in to be able to afford this properly. So clearly we can see through this data, we can go all the way back to 2019. The price to income ratio has not been steady whatsoever, and the home prices climbed way faster than incomes, and the higher mortgage rates made the income needed to jump even more. So there's been many different views on this. For example, many people have viewed this as it's a rational response to a broken system for sure, because if the biggest wealth ladder rung is missing, some people just stop climbing that ladder and they choose different alternatives. A lot of people like to call this financial nihilism, meaning people stop believing in the normal rules to reward them. There's also been views about how this is all just reckless and self-destructive, because if people are just going to be turning to credit cards and spending recklessly and then doing like risky investing, that can trap people into debt and volatility and making the home ownership thing and situation even harder than it used to be. And many people have been pointing out a key question that I also want to ask you guys. Many have asked, are people giving up because housing is impossible, or is housing impossible because of bad money habits? And to be honest, I think that is both. It has to be a mix of both within this generation. So there has been some solutions that has been discussed. For example, maybe build more housing. If there's not enough homes, the prices do go up. But if we build homes, prices stop rising as fast and sometimes can even come down. And you can do things like zoning reform. We can get back to more permitting. We should not be able to have permits take forever, because then fewer homes do get built. Faster permitting equals homes get built sooner. It's important. We can also get into the conversation of targeted subsidies. If you guys are unfamiliar with how this works, a subsidy is like help money from the government to make something more affordable. And we want to make this targeted. Like, we want to have this subsidy for only the people that really do need it. It is for a specific type of group. It's not going to be for everybody, but like for young renters trying to buy their first home, for example. So this could look like a down payment assistance, maybe assistance on first-time buyer credits, maybe assistance on support that can help you qualify, like lowering monthly cost so the bank can approve you. I think that targeted subsidies would be a great idea, like only help out the renters who want to become first home buyers and give them just enough so they can cross the path of have everything approved and getting the house that you do want. Like, just to make sure that you have enough income, enough for a down payment, and also a low enough monthly payment. And there's also different alternatives on what a person can do for themselves, right? Like maybe relocate to a more affordable area. I know that may not be the most practical, but the idea is still there. Like, it's still possible for some people. And maybe you can also diversify your investing beyond crypto. Like, I'm not trying to be like some sort of financial advisor. Like, to be honest, all of this is just for food for thought. I'm not trying to say that this is exactly what you should do, but there's a total consensus going on that if you do want to spend your money on investing, moving beyond crypto would really help. Like, maybe move your money into an index fund, which is something way safer, way more stable. Maybe into some bonds. Maybe also use that money for just savings or a emergency fund. Maybe even put that into a retirement account to do something else outside of crypto. If you're really destined on just like not buying a house whatsoever and just forever trying to make your money work for you. And surprisingly, like stepping away from the whole housing situation, this has had second order impacts like delayed marriages. Because if people feel financially unstable and they feel like they need a house to like really get things going with their partner or whatever, they're going to be like, okay, if I don't have a house, then I'm going to have to delay my marriage, because weddings do cost money and people often want stable housing before settling down. There's also another second order impact of delayed kids, right? Not even delayed marriage, but delayed kids. Like, kids are expensive and many people want that. However, if you want kids, most likely you're also going to want stable housing, a predictable monthly cost, and you're also going to want a lot of space. And if rent is high and buying is impossible, it's common for the young generation to say that we're just going to be pushing kids for maybe mid-30s, mid-40s or whatever. And this has also brought up more multi-generational housing. Like, what is this, right? Like, I can honestly speak through my own experience because I'm 27 years old, turning 28 very soon. But I remember 20 to 25 years ago, I was in a situation where I was living with 20 other people. That is basically what it is. Like 10 to 15 people live under one household. And the reason why people do this is because you can split the cost to make life more survivable, and saving becomes easier when the rent is shared. That is something that many of my parents, my uncles, and my aunties did all together. They all contributed and they all had more money to themselves. And childcare help was easier because the families, they lived together. I remember my auntie was helping me in terms like me getting fed or taking me out to the park or whatever when I was like 5 or 6 years old when my mother could not be there. And we are still seeing that today because adults are just living with their parents longer. Like usually you would see this multi-generational housing take place like in your early years, maybe between the ages of 1 all the way until like 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, and then move out. However, most of these people just stay with their parents or aunties or uncles until around the age of 30 years old, because they know that if they move out and try to go for a house, they're not going to be qualified to do that. And there is some upsides to this, like you can strengthen the family support, it can reduce the expenses as we discussed. However, there are downsides to this. There's less independence and privacy. It can also cause stress or conflict. And for that young adult specifically, they may feel a little behind, even if they're being smart financially. Like they're going to want to do their own thing. And so there's a lot going on here. Yes, there are solutions, but at the end of the day, and ultimately what I believe the young generation does want is to have a stable job, plus most importantly, a reliable paycheck that is able to really get you going and get you what you need to get the life that you do want. So let me know in the comment sections down below, what do you think about all of this? I'm happy to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.